Hello, everyone. This is Dave, and welcome to Moonride. I'm here with Kim of Intuitive You and Debbie of Freebird Spirit. Deb also happens to be a psychologist for 30 years, did you say?
Oh, way longer than that, but
Longer than that.
That'll age me. So
Okay, so
38 plus years ago. Yeah.
She's a very young therapist with a lot of experience.
Start at birth.
Right? And today we're going to talk about a very specific topic, which is the difference between psychosis and a spiritual awakening. I specifically wanted to talk about this because it is a question that some people, some clients and viewers have asked. So fortunately, we have two experts here in their own special ways. And maybe we can start out with you, Debbie, and you could tell us just from a psychological or maybe more, well, from your perspective as a psychologist, the difference between spiritual awakening and psychosis. How will you know the difference?
How to know? That's a big question, David. And there's many layers to this, but just in like a snippet nutshell here, this subject comes up a lot because you have people, and we just shared some of those stories of people saying, I'm hearing voices, I'm seeing things, what is this? I think I'm going crazy. Am I crazy? Those types of things. And so, narrowing down what is true psychosis from what is literally more of a I want to say normal experience, because literally, let's normalize this, because everyone has this ability to tap in, listen, hear, see, all those things. So when does it become psychosis? And that literally, you can narrow that down to when these experiences like hallucinations or audio, hearing things, I was going to say audio hallucinations, when you hear things, see things, experience things, smell things, all the clairs that we talk about, when you're experiencing those and they're creating a negative outcome for you. So it becomes negative. It becomes where you are living in terror. You are possibly so intermingled with the hallucinations and what you're hearing and experiencing that it is so real to you. You're living it out. You may hurt others because you're like, I'm in this hallucination. David's the king of Egypt, and Kim is the queen of you know what I mean? And they're going to kill me, so that becomes where, where you can, that line is very visible for people. You can see that, that you're experiencing that. And that's, so basically, if you're going to hurt, if what you're experiencing is pushing you towards hurting yourself or hurting others, and not in the reality where in your own reality that is harmful to you or others, that would be more on the lines of psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know, Kim, you mentioned that often you've got these people in your classes who are like, am I crazy? And what do you tell them?
Yeah, we say, absolutely, you are crazy. Check your yourself into somewhere. No,
welcome.
It is kind of, we were talking about that before, that it is kind of like, if you think you're crazy, you probably aren't crazy. You have too much self-awareness.
Yes.
To be, it's when you get, and to me, we kind of talked about how the psychosis, like Debbie said, it a lot of times has not all the time, but a lot of times it has kind of a negative bent. And it kind of is a deep dive into the ego part, that identity part. I'm bad, I'm evil, I'm this, I'm that. And it's kind of self directed. Whereas I think of, and it's not, there's hard, it's hard to do hard and fast rules with this stuff, because of course there's exceptions, but a spiritual awakening to me tends to be more about, it tends to be more expansive. It kind of comes out of you and into something else. It rises above the ego. So for example, when I talk to, this is a perfect example over the last couple of days, I needed time to absorb what had happened in the country. We're talking about Roe v. Wade. This is I don't know when this is going out, but this weekend, the Roe v. Wade thing happened. So I needed some time to digest it emotionally and let my ego do what it was going to do, react, be upset, be angry, all of these things. Because when I tap into my guides, it's a completely different, it's always neutral. It's always very bigger picture. It's expansive. It goes out of me, the little me that wants to react and fight everything and be upset. It goes above all that, and it kind of is out here somewhere. And it usually is very dispassionate, very neutral, and very non-judgmental. It's always in that kind of space. It's never in this, let's go get them. It's not ever like that. It's always rises above that. And so I think that that's also a difference that at least I see in myself when I'm getting into that ego space. And with a psychosis, to me, it deep dives even more, and it's more along the negative and, or at least those polarities, good and evil, this and that, very, very polarized, which again is not a spirit thing at all. It's very, very level and very welcoming to, to all lessons. And so it's a very dispassionate, neutral ground.
And we're
so that's my experience.
And I you make it so clear, Kim. And I love what you said about that. And we're seeing psychosis play out when people get so caught up in this narrative within them, and we're taking their right, you know what I mean? Like, we're seeing it play out, and we saw it play out on January 6th, and I don't mean to bring that, but it's something that we can grasp and we can all see. We saw a lot of psychosis play out, just in that moment. But how about you, David?
We saw it kind of play out in like a mob mentality, right? It was this thing that just caught on this fervor, and it was like a it was that way. And it also, to your point too, Debbie, it kind of accelerated into violence and other really negative things that hurt other people, hurt themselves. It's it played out exactly like you were talking about. It showed all those symptoms.
It was not neutral. Okay.
No, not neutral at all.
Just before you asked Debbie, I was just going to say that it just seems almost when it's a psychosis, it's almost like people are downloading a sort of negative story. It's almost as if they feel they are being motivated by something outside themselves, like they are under some kind of control. It's like they've downloaded something that then controls their actions. And I noticed that as perhaps a difference. It also seems that people who are having spiritual awakenings, it is, as you said, expansive. It's not like another is controlling them. It's almost like a new knowledge. That could be very overwhelming. And it can feel like psychosis because you're not the old you. And one thing I many years ago read when I was at the beginning of this journey was William James' Variety of Religious Experience. And in that, he gives like all of these qualities of spiritual awakening. He's very interesting in the sense that he went to spiritual experiences all over, Hindu, you name it, Christian, anything, and says, they're similar. And they have this sort of like, you're like a cork and you sort of sink in the ocean. the cork being your ego, and it just sort of sinks. And I think that's true of psychosis too. But somehow the cork sinks, and it's almost like you're able to now incorporate a broader scope, but it's not outside of your understanding and control. It might feel that way, but it's not outside so much. So I think, sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, it just made me think of somebody that Kim and I have talked to, and that's Joan of Arc.
Oh, right.
Perfect example of, society today would diagnose her schizophrenic, right?
Yeah, cool.
She talked to angels. She was given a mission from these angels to she saw a broader picture, like and more expansive, this awakening in herself that she followed. But some that read her story now in the Western world would say that she was schizophrenic. But Kim, we talked to her. And,
yeah, and that made me think of something else, Debbie, too, and Dave, is that there can be also a because I'm thinking of the rampant kind of, we keep talking about how we have a mental health crisis in this country right now, and it's and I think that there is something about victimhood that's attached to it as well. I'm powerless, and Joan of Arc is a great example that when you are connected to something, you're connected to spirituality, and you have a spiritual awakening, there's something very powerful about it that you want to stand in. Something, and I think that she's a perfect example of someone who claimed and owned her truth and stood in it. There was nothing victim-y about her at all, and even her energy was very powerful. And so I think there's that as well, where there can be, again, the little me, the ego me, the tiny me. There's something big and expansive and very empowering about a spiritual awakening that you don't usually find, I don't think, in the type of mental illness we're talking about, that kind of group whatever this is, group psychosis or whatever this is. Yeah. And we were talking too about voices and those kinds of things, and how in the West it's treated very differently than it is in tribal cultures and different things like that, or where it's in some places it's your ancestors reaching out to you, talking to you. And in the West we have a tendency to anything, like Debbie was saying before, anything outside the box, let's label it and give you medication, or let's label it and fix it. And I think we're moving out of that very slowly. I think we're like you mentioned, Debbie, in this, in a very short period of time, there was this idea that if you were homosexual, there was something wrong. You needed to fix it. There was something going on. You know what I mean? That mental illness thing.
Yeah, you were literally in the DSM, and so that's the diagnostic manual that we all have in this field. And if you were homosexual, you were in the DSM, and it was a mental health issue, and had needed medication or electric shock and all kinds of things to create change with that. Anything out of the social norm is considered a mental health issue. And so who designated social norm? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
well, that dawned on me just when you said that, Debbie, is that social norms is because what's happening to you is making me uncomfortable. Right. So you need to fix it. You need to figure it out because it's making me uncomfortable. That's what a social norm is, right? It's yeah.
In my church, we pray, we don't hear voices. And you're in my church, so that's what I need you to do. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, you can hear God. You hear God, you can hear Jesus. That's it. Yeah. Everybody else, forget about it.
Certainly no Mary action, depending on the church. It's male only voices. Yeah, interesting enough. Yeah. And
That's interesting point, David.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I had, right after I went to Uluru, I mean, I've had many spiritual experiences in my life, but I had a spiritual awakening that was at one point so strong. I was actually reading Dolores Cannon's They Walked with Jesus. I totally recommend this book because in this book, it's very much like, no, there are plenty of women who followed him. Women were totally a prominent role, and all this has gotten written out. And I was just so moved that this was such an odd thing because I never exactly do this, but I actually went into stopped the Netflix show that I was watching. I left my partner there, and I had this really strong urge to pray. And I mean, literally to pray on my knees like this. I've never done that in my life. And I did that. And within 5 minutes, I felt like I was having this absolutely overwhelming message from the universe. And I was crying like a baby. My partner came and picked me up off the floor because he could hear me crying. And he's like, what is wrong? What is the matter with you? And I actually had an overwhelming experience feeling that a family member had died. I thought I was intuiting, and I literally saw them pass before my eyes. This was like, that was not true. They did not die. It was like, I actually can't really, even today, explain it except to say that I have an extremely tolerant partner who doesn't think all this stuff. But another partner would have shipped me out to the loony bin. He'd be like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a good example, David, of where this is a spiritual experience that someone on the outside is observing, and they're uncomfortable, like Kim is saying,
Right.
and they're like, oh, he's going cuckoo, cray. We need to get him to the hospital. Yeah. But your partner, who is perfect for you, understands that you don't live in a social norm anyway. That's not your experience here this time around.
Yeah.
And so, and he literally is holding space for you to do that. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to understand, and that's the beautiful part of it.
That's a beautiful part.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is awesome. And he is awesome. And I'll tell you too, it was, maybe I would put this as different from psychosis, which I have. I had an anxiety attack when I was young. Somehow the anxiety attack that I felt my parents were separating and I was coming out of the closet was a very difficult time. And I just had this sort of disconnected experience, like here in the shower, here's the bar of soap. What do I do with that? It had that feeling of, honestly, I can't explain it except to say, in that moment at 17, I knew I needed help. Right. And this particular moment, it actually felt, except for the person dying, it actually felt expansive. It literally felt like I was being rewritten. And that everything that I believed and knew was going to change. But it didn't feel like I was out of control. It felt overwhelming, but not to the point of me being out of control. And I didn't feel like anybody was controlling me. It just felt like I was having this experience.
And you, I feel like what I'm hearing with this, David, is you stepped into the connection of human grief, of loss, and what is happening at this time on the globe. You literally stepped in that, that's a true mediator. That's a true person who steps in between to help carry. It's an empath.
Yeah.
Stepped in it and carried it in that moment for many. It wasn't just yours.
I think you're absolutely right.
But you were able to understand it by the vision they gave you. And they're like, let's carry this grief together and release some of this from the globe. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Kim, thanks so much. That was just a perfect free diagnosis that I got there. It's just exactly what I did not put it in that context until you said that. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do think you've made a point that's important to cover, and that is, some people really are experiencing psychosis, and we don't want to say that it's all not psychosis, because some people, do need to take certain steps. How would you feel like that they they would know that they are experiencing psychosis? Like, how would they know? What would you recommend?
Well, that's, well, like Kim was saying, that when someone is truly experiencing psychosis in themselves, they don't often recognize it because it's inside. Someone outside of themselves, someone outside would recognize it in them before they would recognize that they're having psychosis themselves. But to speak to our family here, if you have someone in your life that you see, are having some issues and so forth, and they're exhibiting that they want to hurt themselves or others, and they're caught up in this illusion or delusions or hallucinations, and it's real to them when they say, there is a frog right there and it is after me. They're really seeing that frog and it really is after them. They literally are living this out. It's kind of like, almost like a I don't know, a matrix feel to it, where I don't know how to explain it, but their worlds are true to them and it's internal, like Kim said. And so that would be the best way to explain it. Their internal world. And they're inside there. If it's a spiritual experience, it's out here. It's expansive, it's big, and it's uplifting. But it most likely, I would just encourage others to be aware of people experiencing this. Our family that's listening here, if you're feeling like I'm hearing voices, I'll be sleeping and all of a sudden I hear my name and it wakes me up, and those types of things, that's what we are doing. That's more of a spiritual aspect, abilities and connecting all the realms together and experiencing that. So there's a huge difference once we laid it out here. I feel like will be super easy to navigate through and see. Yeah. Did I cover that? Did I say that?
You did.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. If, for example, if a person is going through that, what do you think they should do, practically speaking? If a viewer is experiencing, hallucinations, etc.
So more of the psychosis type I was talking about. Yeah, then they need to get in and get professional help. They can either go to, an emergency, if it's getting to an emergency level, they can go to an emergency room and get seen and evaluated, or seek psychiatric help somewhere. Here in the United States, it's you can seek help anywhere. As far as it's there for you. Psychiatric hospitals, clinics, and also pretty much any ER will be staffed with someone like me.
Okay, great.
That's where I work.
How about for the others who are not so sure, maybe they're experiencing a channeling experience, maybe they're experiencing a spiritual awakening, but they're not so sure. What would you guys recommend?
Well, for me, I think you need to explore it. You need to kind of do a deep dive and see what's going on. It shouldn't be, if it is in the spirit realm or your guide speaking to you or this, it shouldn't be something fearful. It shouldn't make you afraid. It should be something that you should feel like you're able to kind of really do a deep dive and figure out what's going on. especially, I'm thinking of like empathic, being an empath, that can be a little confusing because you can have, if you don't know you're an empath, you can kind of go into depression, you can go into, because you're feeling it all. You're feeling collective energy, you're feeling the energy of people around you in your home, and you can feel all kinds of stuff. So that can be very confusing. So I think exploring, am I feeling that way? For some reason, all of a sudden, I feel very depressed. Should I be depressed? Is something going on? Exploring that, going inside and within and seeing what is going on. Do I really feel like that? Oh, well, maybe it's something around me. You know what? No, but my sister just came in and she seems really down. Maybe it's her, that kind of exploring. What do you say, Debbie?
I was just gonna say that with the depression and anxiety, that's a huge one. So taking it to that level, we have in the United States, we have so many people on antidepressants, anxiety medication, and so much. I mean, if we really had time, we could really knock down that number, because it's most of that is because of their ability to connect into that energy, empathic energy. And so, but it's built up over time because they didn't know how to deal with it or where it was coming from. And it's overwhelming. And then all of a sudden it turns into issues with your body and stomach issues and all this other, the big pharma wants to keep us all anxious and depressed. And they certainly do not want us to know that we're empaths and actually can really combat that anxiety and depression and panic attacks and all the things that come along with that. And I'm not saying that that everyone that has a panic attack, they're getting a panic attack because they're empath and it's somebody else's. No, we take inventory, we check it out, but it just blows my mind on the amount of people who are all medicated here, and not being able to use their ability to do the work they wanted to do when they came here, and that was to help support humanity and carrying the burdens of grief, of sadness, of all that, because empaths, we have the ability to not only take it on, we have the ability to release it better than others. And see, it's all training. But anyways, that's a whole nother.
It's a great point. Terrific point. I'll tell you, my aunt, she has passed, was very intuitive, and she was also a stewardess. And one day she got a message, don't get on that plane. And she didn't, and it crashed. And all of her friends died. All of them were stewardesses. And after that, she had a nervous breakdown. And so I'm sure, when people are looking at that, they're trying to find these reasons. Well, the reason was she was intuitive and she felt horrible guilt because she didn't warn others, as if she called them on the phone, they were going to believe her. But there was just no context for her to be an intuitive person. No one said, hey, you're feeling guilty because you have intuition. Let's change that and use that intuition to help others. They're just that space did not exist for her. And I just think that it does now. Now we can find others who are intuiting, who are like, no, you're not crazy. This can be something that can be used for good, and not just the negative. So one thing I do want to say, for those of us who are having a spiritual awakening and maybe it's confusing, what do you think they ought to do? What's your recommendation? Maybe we could start with Kim.
I was just thinking about you said was it your aunt? Is that what you said?
Yes.
I was thinking, the difference between maybe the difference between her and the other flight attendants were that she listened to her intuition, right? They may have gotten the same message. We don't know. And a lot of people override their own internal voice. They override it, or they don't listen to it, or they rationalize it, right? The thinking mind comes in and says, well, but I got to go to work and I got to pay the bills and I can't, so that's what I was just thinking. But what was your initial question, Dave?
My question, if we are having a spiritual awakening,
Yeah.
where should we go with that? How can we get some help?
I think mentors are great. I think classes are great. I think doing a deep dive and an inventory of your own, if you're feeling things, go into your own feelings. If you're seeing and hearing things, and you feel like it's something that you can that it's coming and going in a way that's kind of manageable, or it's coming and going in a way that makes you more curious rather than freaks you out, those kinds of things. I think those are good things to keep track of and follow. But I think, asking other people that do this kind of thing, how did these messages come in? I think I got a message, or I think I got, I think reaching out in that way is so important. We have that, like I said, we have that all the time. People say, am I crazy? Because and they're so relieved to know, no, you're not. And all it takes is somebody saying, no, you're not crazy. And then they feel empowered to dig in and see where their gifts lie and where their abilities are. And there again, there's an empowerment to this. It's not a victim-y kind of thing. It's a very, once you understand it and once you kind of move into that space, you really do feel empowered. And it's an expansive feeling. It's not a shut down, closed down ego, that stuff. It's none of that.
Yeah.
And I, and depending on how it comes in, if all of a sudden, if you're a medium and you're like, I didn't know I was a medium, and all of a sudden there's someone's, you know what I mean? The startle may come in, but if that startle goes away, so that fear, that initial, and that goes away, and then you step into it. If that fear stays, then okay, something's going on, because this is not what we do. And with this spiritual work, these abilities, the psychic medium stuff, however you want, intuitive, however you want to put words on it, it's not based in fear, it's based in love. And so understanding that messages that you receive, I can't say this enough, keep a journal of messages coming in, so you can see how it plays out, and you can go, oh my gosh, I wrote that 2 weeks ago, and look, it's but also know that unless you make it warnings too, like your aunt got a warning, don't get on that plane, and those come in, and that's great. But the majority of this is love and words of kindness and expansion and awareness. So if you are receiving messages of hate and demise and more of a shadowy feel to messages you're receiving, I would take a second and look at that and just go, because that's not what's source. Love is not, it's neutral, like you were saying, right, Kim? That's a good way to put it. So that's where just being aware of how it's coming in, what type of messages are coming in. Even if I was going to do a reading for you guys today and give you both a reading, even challenges that come in, even if I say, okay, so I see some challenges coming in, but it's all about expansion for you. I'm not saying, oh, I see challenges coming in and there's a devil on your shoulder and I need to light a candle. So you can tell the difference between really moving in this spiritual awareness and awakening than not. Did that make sense?
Sure.
Sure.
I just want to add, without people like Debbie and Kim, I might be crazy, I might really go crazy because I feel like there's nobody who understands me. So I really
Right.
do like the greatest thing that you can do for yourself is community. Is if these things are happening to you, I often find that I will talk to people who are just feel very isolated. I'm like, you got to find a friend who you can tell this stuff to, who's going to go, oh yeah, that happened to me too, like this in this particular way. It's just so much more calming. And, collectively, as I know we have to consider going forward, we have a lot of power, and it's not this kind of power, it's this power of the heart. I think that anybody who's experiencing this, even if community means, even if you're super shy and community means reading a lot or watching videos that make you feel like you're communing, ideally, of course, go out there and, be fairly selective about how you choose. It should feel good in your heart when you're meeting others who are doing this work. And it will, I think, if you are on the right track and meeting the right people. It's all, for me these days, about community. And you can look at how the community is breaking apart and falling together again as we speak. Things are changing really rapidly.
Yeah.
It would not be surprising if people are having spiritual awakenings and experiencing a lot of trauma right now with what's going on, which is
Yes.
one of the reasons why I think it's important to make this video.
And also know that we have awakenings all the time. You don't just have one awakening and it's done.
Yeah, true.
One and done. Yeah, no, we definitely, it's like almost, we have an opportunity almost every day to have a spiritual awakening if we
Yeah.
choose. So,
Mhm.
and if, again, I just want to preface, if between the two, if it's producing fear, don't go in that direction. If it's producing encouragement, hope, love, that's the direction you want to go.
Right.
Great. Good. Well, thank you both so much. This is really helpful. See you.
Thank you, Dave.
David, for opening this conversation, and I hope it starts a conversation.
Yes.
And I hope it encourages many. Yeah.
Good.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye.